recently purchased a Game Boy camera, which is an old piece of technology that allows you to take pictures with the original Game Boy. The pictures have a resolution of 128 by 112 pixels, and it's a very interesting little novelty. Of course, the technology itself is obsolete. If I really wanted to get that effect in Photoshop, I could just shrink my images down and add some filters. But the end result isn't what's important. During my trip to VidCon 2025, I brought the Game Boy camera and was able to take some cool pictures of the event, and with some YouTubers. People were very interested in the Game Boy camera not just because of the end result, but because it was an interesting piece of technology that you normally wouldn't think of as a camera. With my Game Boy camera, I have been able to take all sorts of interesting pictures, and I plan on hopefully being able to do something artistic with them in the future. Using video game consoles as a medium for art has always fascinated me. I used to follow this homebrew artist, Smealum, who cracked code and would run his own games on DS and 3DS systems. These games were insanely impressive and really pushed the limits of what the hardware could handle. There was something so cool about the DIY nature of these types of games. Getting the hardware and software working was part of the fun, and made playing the game a real treat. I recently came across an artist that took this idea of video games as a medium of art to a whole new level. His name is Zhou Yichen, and he uses Game Boys as a medium to tell these gorgeous and interesting stories in a way that I have never seen before. I first came across Yichen's work from an Instagram post that shared a really touching game he made as a tribute to his grandmother. The game is titled Grandma, and it's an interactive experience revolving around the player taking care of his injured grandmother. Taking her on walks, making sure she's fed, and talking with her. You get to experience Zhou Yichen's memories firsthand this way, but as the game goes on, she eventually passes, where you are left wandering around the empty house, going through the memories one by one. And when you go to sleep, you get this beautiful dream, where you say goodbye for one last time. It's a simple little experience, but felt so profound. I found this game to be so heartfelt and personal, and the fact that it is a Game Boy game on an actual cartridge I found so interesting. Being able to play the game firsthand on his itch.io page was a real meaningful experience. Usually the homebrew games I would normally play would be demakes of bigger games, such as this port of Halo called Halo Combat Devolved, or DS-Craft by the previously mentioned Smealum. But this game is not only an original work of art, but also such an interesting little concept to put onto the Game Boy. I had to see more. So I went to his page and discovered that he actually has loads of Game Boy games that he's been making these past 5 years. One that really caught my eye is the game Nothing Happened Today, which just shows the mundane lifestyle that Yichen lived in during the pandemic. The game involves being alone at home with his girlfriend Robin. The game includes washing your face in the bathroom, taking a shower, cooking, going online, and sleeping. If you talk to Robin, you can go outside and go down to the beach, which shows this beautiful scene. This game totally captured the energy and feeling of a nothing day. I found it so interesting to document something so mundane on a Game Boy game. Doing so really highlights just how important the simple things in life are. The little moments that Yichen captures, like going on a walk, talking to your girlfriend, and lounging around the house, are so easy to take for granted, and you won't realize how nice these times are until they're gone. Another really interesting one is the game Upstairs, where you play as Yichen climbing stairs over and over and over again. Unlike the changing scenery of the other games we looked at, this one is much more monotonous, with nothing more than a changing number at the top. As Yichen explains on Instagram, this work is a game based on my personal life's journey and self-realization at the time. In this process of continuous climbing from the bottom to the top floor, the experience is not only a physical journey of rising layer by layer, but also a challenge of boredom, dullness, and meaninglessness. And even more, a spiritual and psychological exploration. Although each floor looks the same, it symbolizes those subtle but important changes in life. These changes may not be easy to detect, but together they constitute the meaning of the entire life's journey. Eventually, you do reach the top floor where you are given two choices, stay or start over, which also, according to Yichen, is a commentary on how in life you can either be satisfied with your choices and stay comfortable where you are, or start all over from scratch and pursue new beginnings. A lot of these are, like the ones I previously mentioned, accompanied by a little paragraph that usually explains the piece and gives insight into the mind of Yichen. He does a good job explaining the whole experience and why certain aspects are the way they are. Even though he explains a lot about these works, I had a few questions for him. First and foremost, I wondered where he learned to make games this way. He told me that he studied fine art at Pratt Institute, but chose the direction of new media and interdisciplinary art. He was bored with traditional art, and was fascinated by different materials and new media. This is something I've always felt about learning art in college too. I would gravitate towards making art in different types of mediums, especially art that bends genres and uses the internet or video games in a different kind of way. I also asked him who inspires him, and he mentioned the artist Feng Mengbo, Cory Archangel, Jason Rohar, and Mvanwe Ashmore, who are all super interesting new media artists that utilize or are inspired by video games. There's this incredible video on YouTube where Feng Mengbo talks about his piece Not Too Late, which features psychedelic and abstract visuals created by a video game that he made. I find it so fascinating, and the visuals almost remind me of album covers by My Bloody Valentine and Cocteau Twins. Really interesting concept that visualizes the passage of time in a really beautiful way. I'll link to it in the description. Another thing that I wondered about these works was why put them on Game Boy? To me, this is such an interesting medium to toy around with, and certainly gives his work a unique style and quality, but I wanted to ask the man himself. As Yichen explains, most of my works are based on my own experiences, which I have turned into ideas, social events, and my personal views on these events, etc. I will make these ideas into games and put them on Game Boy. In my childhood, games have always been with me. I was immersed in the game world and was attracted by the beautiful pictures, interesting narratives, unique characters, and fantasy scenes, so games have always had a place in my heart. Yichen captures these beautiful and often forgotten about moments onto Game Boy cartridges, because games hold such a unique power in shaping our memories, childhoods, and experiences. By turning these memories into tangible games that can be slid into the back of a Game Boy, Yichen is treating these memories and experiences with the same weight as the games he grew up with. Imagine cleaning out your room and finding an old Game Boy cartridge, except instead of an old game you used to play, it's a memory from a different time in your life. I believe that is the feeling that Yichen is trying to portray with these thought-provoking games. It's a really powerful way to take these sentimental moments and preserve them in such a nostalgic medium. I always wondered why experimenting with old technology had always fascinated me. When I first picked up this Game Boy camera, I thought of it as a fun novelty, something really artsy and charming. It reminds me of the record collection that my dad and I share. Physical works such as cartridges or records give an aspect to technology that is something we don't see much anymore. As these records and cartridges get older, they age along with you. Putting an old record on from decades ago, you can hear the crackling and worn down grooves as it's been played over the years. You can see the scratches of a Game Boy game as it slid in and out of the slot hundreds of times. Yichen's work teaches us that these memories are valuable and can carry so much weight by preserving them in this format. Seeing the pictures of people playing these games on physical hardware was beautiful. If he ever has an art show in Southern California, I will for sure be there. Definitely check out Zhou Yichen's work on Instagram, as well as his itch.io page where you can play his game Grandma, as well as a few others that have just been posted. I want to thank him for responding to my DM and answering all the burning questions I had. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out the Etsy shop for some cool stickers. The Etsy shop is starting to become more and more populated, with many sticker designs to look through. Thank you to everyone that has already purchased some, and thank you for watching.